Hi, everyone. My name is Stacy Soundletter. My claim to fame is that I am an ex-wife of an attorney who formerly worked for Child Protective Services. My divorce custody action has been ongoing for probably 10 years. And in the circumstances of divorcing an attorney, basically you get thrown every possible hurdle for the past 10 years. And so I bring to you that experience to um, help with CPS cases because uh, I've been through it all. If you can imagine something, it's probably happened in my case. Today is my first show, and I have with us a very, very special guest. I couldn't think of anyone more appropriate to have for the first show. Um, Her name is Tiffany. And Tiffany, would you like to explain to the audience how I know you?
Um, actually, probably 2 years ago, approximately 2 years ago, mutual friends that does a lot of work for the Stop Abuse campaign was like, I'd love for you to, speak with so and so, and she connected us, and then she kind of told me before connecting us that um, we had a person in common, so to speak, and come to find out the person in common, her ex, the attorney, was my attorney in my family court case. So it explains a little, go into detail about how he helped my ex win sole custody of my four children. So,
Right. So like I said, my ex was an attorney with Niagara County Child Protective Services in the state of New York. And Tiffany, how old were you when you met your ex?
I was almost 17. I was about, we met, and I want to say it was August of 2002 or 2003. I was 4 months away from turning 17. I would have been 17 that October.
And how old was your ex
Um,
when he
I
met you?
believe he was 44 at the time.
So when did your involvement with Child Protective Services begin?
My oldest son, who will be 18 this year, he was born in 2005, so he was born in November of 2005, and CPS got involved when he was almost 3 months old. It was late January of 2006.
And if ever I ask you something that's too sensitive and you don't want to answer, just tell me because I know there's a lot here. Um,
And that was in Erie County. That was Erie County CPS.
when my ex was involved and you lost custody of your children, can you explain the circumstances? What happened there?
Well, I like in 2006 was my very first involvement of CPS. Um, that was in Erie County. I had three older kids. They ended up getting removed. My rights were terminated. Because I stayed with my ex, it was all domestic violence related. And then in 2016, the domestic violence in my home was still continuing. It's kind of like stuff with my ex, unfortunately. It's very complicated. So CPS in Niagara County stepped in and removed my children, who are now 11, 9, 7, and well, Angela was, or my daughter wasn't born yet. And they removed the three boys and put them in Niagara County foster care. I had an attorney. He was assigned counsel. The case was moving slowly, but my landlord at the time wanted me to obtain her attorney, which was Stacy's ex. And so I did that because she said that, he fights CPS and he wins and he'll make things happen. Um, Yeah, he made a lot happen. I was pregnant with my daughter. The day after my daughter was born, CPS came into the hospital room and said they were removing my daughter from me due to derivative neglect, which is a charge the CPS puts on you if you give birth to a child while other children are in the system or in care, in foster care. And I was confused because approximately 2 weeks prior to my daughter being born, I was told, even the foster parents were told, that my kids, my boys were coming home to me. I mean, they even made arrangements. They came to my home, brought me all my boys' belongings that they'd accumulated while they were in foster care. The judge at the time verified in a court appearance a couple weeks prior that the kids were coming home to me, that he was only keeping them in care so I didn't have to arrange childcare while I was in the hospital having my daughter. I agreed to it. They'd already been gone like 9 months at this point, so it made sense because I am alone. I don't really have help, childcare help, none of that. And so when they showed up in my hospital room and told me they were taking my daughter, I was floored. I was just confused. Assuming that she was going to be removed from me and placed into foster care, I naturally called my boys' foster parent, whom I had a really good relationship with and still do to this day. And she was like, I didn't hear that I was taking on the baby. I thought the boys, were coming home, and, she was kind of floored too. And then one thing led to another. I was told that they were all going to my ex-husband, my abuser. And I didn't know what to say. Um,
How, so what you're describing, and I think that you've described, is that your ex assaulted you and you were significantly younger than him, and CPS came in and gave him custody because he beat you up in front of the kids.
yes. At the end of the day, which, after research and my own research and stuff, they legally couldn't have removed my kids anyways. But they did. Um, they consider it like failure to protect my children from witnessing violence. Somehow I was supposed to prevent my ex in CPS's world, uh, as a domestic violence victim. Um, our job is to make sure the kids don't witness the violence. It's not the perpetrator's job to make sure it doesn't happen, just the victims, I guess, as far as CPS is concerned. So,
So sometimes when we've discussed the situation, and this is hard stuff, so I understand if you don't want to talk about it, but can you explain so some people understand? You were very young, he was much older. The things that he did um, that made you have to stay there.
he controlled my whole life. I mean, like I didn't have a driver's license, so he was like all I had to like get to doctor's appointments, jobs, work, everything. When I did work, he chose where and what I could do. Um, my paychecks had to go into his bank account. It was a joint bank account, but I wasn't allowed to have like a debit card to it or access to it. I really wasn't allowed to have money on me at any time. If I had friendships, somehow he would figure out how to manipulate his way into those friendships and destroy them, in a sense. I never had much of a supportive family. I, I've been on my own, so like when I met him, I kind of felt like he was my safety net, honestly, because I didn't have anything, I was on my own. At the time when I met him, I was waitressing at a restaurant slash bar that he frequented the bar area, and that's how I met him.
So this is the typical story of an older man taking advantage of a very young, vulnerable girl.
And when I was met him, he I want to say was like my savior because, and I will give him some kind of credit because I was in a very volatile situation. I didn't have a place to live. I was living in a hotel room, having to pay week to week because I had nowhere to live. And there was a guy that was, I considered him my boyfriend. He lived with me. I considered him my boyfriend, but he said he wasn't my boyfriend. He wouldn't tell anybody he was my boyfriend, but he would beat on me and steal my money quite often. And a couple of times I did show up to work pretty beat up from this guy. And my ex-husband now, he ended up like beating the guy up behind the restaurant one night, told him to stay the hell away from me. And one thing led to another. He was like my savior, like thank you, because I was scared of the man.
So when CPS took your kids from you and then gave them to your abuser and your captor, what did you do?
Well, having your ex as my attorney, I did everything. I thought I filed for custody, I did this, I did that. But then I was told in like a mediation thing, that if I dropped my custody petitions, because my ex was already allowing me to come over there and take care of the kids as long as I gave him favors, sexual favors, I'll be honest. And if I didn't do that, he would restrict my access to the kids because I did have court ordered visitation with the kids. And he was like tormenting me with that, because the courts weren't doing anything. Like if he chose not to send the kids and I went to court and said I didn't get to see my kids, they'd be like, oh, well, like they just didn't care. So I gave him his favors so I could see my kids on a regular basis. I really wanted to. I missed them. My kids were, CPS. My son was the only one in school. My oldest son was the only one in school at the time. And this school had called CPS a few times on my ex, and nobody cared. They would just close the case. My older son was pretty scared of some of the things that he was seeing and hearing and going through. So I just wanted to be with my kids because I felt like they needed to feel some kind of safety, and I was their safety. I've always been their safety. So when I was told that if I signed over custody, dropped all my family court petitions, my petition for custody, all of it.
CPS told you this, right? CPS told you you had to drop these petitions, and CPS told you had to.
Pretty much, CPS told me that if I dropped all that, my attorney agreed, blah, blah, blah. If I dropped it all and gave him just sole custody, they would walk away, drop all their neglect petitions against me. They would just walk away and pretend and wash their hands of the whole case, and me and my ex could do whatever we wanted to do for the sake of our kids as far as visitations. I did it because my ex already told me if I did it that I could just move in with them and live happily ever after as long as I quit my job, sold my truck, blah, 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 and became a stay-at-home mom. My kids needed me, so I did it.
And it was so happily ever after. When you needed even necessities like deodorant, what would happen?
It was the same kind of scenario. I'd have to do what he wanted, even if I needed necessities for my kids. Kids need school shoes. It's just easier to do it that way because I was here, my kids were making it to school every day.
So CPS took your kids from you, gave them to this man who took advantage of you as a young child and is your captor, and they gave the kids to him so that he could continue his abuse and control over you. And you did what you could so that you could have access to your kids and raise your kids.
Yeah. I mean, it made sense to me because my kids needed me.
No, I think you're a hero for everything you did.
It only made sense, you know? It sucked. 1 second. 1 second. Sorry, my son.
No, that's a blessing because I know you're talking to your kids who are with you now.
Yeah. And well, that's where we ended up. The pandemic hit. My ex's drugs and stuff fueled a little out of control. Um, I was homeschooling at this point when the pandemic hit. All three of my boys were in school full time, so I was having to homeschool 3 kids and then take care of my daughter, who was only 2. Well, my ex ran the streets, did whatever he wanted, not came home on several occasions. And I kind of grew more confident of like, you know what, after you, really. Um, I'm doing all this. I'm doing it on my own. I'm struggling. I'm exhausted. A neighbor here, because he had got us, we had to move into subsidized housing. One thing about my ex is he's really crappy at paying bills. So I signed over custody to him in 2018. And 3 months after that, we were evicted from the apartment he was living in. He got us another apartment. Within 2 months, we were evicted from there and homeless for about a week before we got into subsidized housing in February of 2019. So, like from September of 2018 until February of 2019, we went through 4 different places. That's how well he pays bills. And there was nothing I could do because he wouldn't let me work. So, you know. Um, Anywho, we moved into the subsidized housing, and while we were here, one of the neighbors had told me, "Oh, if you've ever worked before, you could file for the pandemic unemployment assistance during the pandemic." And I was just like, "Well, I haven't worked in a year and a half now or something." And they were like, "Just do it and see if you get approved." And I did, and I got approved. So behind my ex's back, because he wasn't here enough, if he even realized it, I applied for the pandemic unemployment assistance, which gave me $482 a week. Um, Opened up my own bank account, had it all signed over to a new bank, or to my own bank account. Got myself, me and the kids a vehicle, and just took care of things myself.
So
And
you learned how to drive because prior your ex was not allowing you to have a driver's license. So that was one of the things that you did to gain your independence was you went and you did get your driver's license.
I went to driving school through Steve's driving school, and they offered me a really good discount. I know they said don't mention names, but that's a company name. They gave us a really good discount, being that my story and stuff. And I think I paid like $200 total for an entire driving lessons, including my road test, and I passed my road test on the first try. I was really proud of myself. It was very empowering. And then I got me and the kids a van and just kept going, kept moving forward. However, it did become very volatile in the house after that, and I knew it would. And
So
very,
that was your punishment for gaining some independence.
very volatile. It was a lot of traumatic stuff happened during the pandemic in our home. Um, it was April. He went on a vendor, came home. It was April of 2021. He went on some kind of vendor. He was gone for a few days, came home, was flipping out, cut the internet lines. I called the cops. Cops didn't do nothing. My kids had to be homeschooled, so that was just like, what are you doing? Like I don't have internet, so I had to call Spectrum. And they came out, replaced the internet lines for me at my expense. I went on to family court. I tried to get an order of protection, even filed for modification of custody. They didn't do nothing. They literally did nothing for me. Um, Fast forward to November 6th of 2021. I don't know, I think he's some kind of an angel. We got in a really big, heated argument between me and my ex. He had been gone all night. And, for some reason, he went after my oldest son, and I still don't really grasp what was wrong with him to be so mad at my son over trying to clean up my kitchen, over cleaning up dinner that night. But went after my son. I jumped in between them. My son reported the whole incident. Then I chose to call the cops, and that cop looked at the recording and arrested my husband. And when they arrested him, he had drugs on him.
So just so everyone hears that again, your child is the one that called the police on your ex, the father.
No, I actually called the police. I called the police.
Oh, okay. I thought it was your son that had called.
No, my son showed the police officer while he was here the recording. And
Oh, I see. Okay, because I knew your son was involved.
for some reason, my son chose, when he saw his dad going after me, he again hit record on his phone. And I didn't know that he recorded the incident. I thought he ran off to his bedroom like the rest of the kids always do and did that night. And two cops showed up, and they separated me and my ex. They sent me upstairs to my room, and my ex was downstairs. And cop was talking to me or whatever, and my oldest son came walking over, and he was like, "Can I show you something?" He says to the cops, and then he showed the cops the video that I didn't know existed. And for some reason, this cop just didn't. I've since watched the video, and it really just shows that my son was highly upset, and that my ex had pushed me. All he did was shove me that night. I've had so much worse done to me by that man. All he did was shove me out of his way. And the cop was like, "Nope, harassment, harassment, and a second assault, something, child endangerment." I signed the statement. He took my husband off that night.
So, would you like to tell the audience how CPS handled the situation versus the police?
So the cops take him. They catch him with drugs. The very next morning, I was unaware that that my ex had drugs on him. The very next morning, I didn't know what the process was because we are in New York State, bail reform. I kind of knew that he would get like OR'd or whatever the next morning. So it was about 8:30 in the morning. I wasn't going to send the kids to school the next morning. They were back to school again, the school was open. I wasn't going to send them to school because they were up late the night before with the whole incident that happened between me and their dad. And so it was 8:30 in the morning. We were sitting at the kitchen table eating breakfast, and there was a knock at the door. I was like, okay. So I went and answered the door. Nobody comes to my door that early in the morning, and it was a CPS worker. And I'd love to mention his name, but I can't. This CPS worker walked in and was like, "Yeah, so-and-so with Madison County Beach CPS." Now, I've dealt with this man before. And he says, "So you're aware of Mr. whatever, his arrest last night?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm the one that told the cops. I do know the charges." And he was like, "You do know that he got caught with drugs in his possession?" I was like, "No, I did not know that." And he's like, "But I'm glad the kids are safe and they're with you. So I guess we'll continue our investigation or what have it." And I was like, "That's it?" Like, okay. So about an hour and a half later, I find out that my ex got OR'd, and the judge did not even give me an order of protection. So he was allowed to come back to our home. And I was kind of appalled. Well, CPS's way of dealing with that, because there was no order of protection, and the fact that he had sole custody, was they just unfounded the case and left it.
So they unfounded a case with him having drugs and beating you in front of the kids, but that was reason to take the kids from you.
He was criminally charged with child endangerment, harassment in a second, and drug possession, and they closed the case within 30 days.
Right. But in criminal court,
not any of it.
But in criminal court, the case
he was found guilty.
Right.
and we
So
got a 2-year
the
order.
higher standard of evidence, he was found guilty, but CPS unfounded the situation. So you now have custody of your 4 children.
Yes, we actually, the irony of the situation is after he got arrested and got OR'd and was allowed to come back to the house, he obtained a very special lawyer from Niagara County. Can I mention his name or
You can
no?
mention his name because he's all over. It's public information and knowledge.
My ex hired Nicholas D'Angelo, of all attorneys, and filed for divorce, which helped me out a great deal. We went in front of the judge. I mean, it helped me, but at first it caused me a lot more stress because we went in front of a Supreme Court judge, and this judge acknowledged that there was domestic violence in the home, acknowledged that I was the primary caretaker of the kids, acknowledged all of this. However, tried to put in an order stating that as of February 1st of 2022, which was last year, I was to vacate the home, but return to the home to provide care.
I
To
remember
return
this.
to the home in the morning to get the kids up and dressed for school. This was seriously going to be a court order. Get the kids up and dressed for school, and then leave the home again. Find I would have to find care during the day for my daughter who was not school age yet. If my ex couldn't provide the care or had things to do during the day, I would have to provide that care for her. So I was to leave the home, figure out what to do with my daughter during the day if he wasn't available, come back to the home when my boys got off the bus, do their homework, showers, get them ready for bed, and then leave the home. But I was to be on call on the weekends in case my ex needed me. This was a serious court order that was about to take
On
effect.
call.
On call.
You said on call. You have to be on call, like for a job. On call.
This was going to be a serious court order, and it was shocking even to my own attorney. She actually said to the judge, "Are you effing kidding me?" She used the word right on. It's on, and she was like, "Are you effing kidding me?" She left court that day and immediately filed a petition due to the current domestic violence charges to get our case moved into an integrated domestic violence court. She got it approved. We went into integrated domestic violence court. The judge at that time looked over the case, looked over the details, was taken back that there was ever even going to be a court order, that I was to be my kid's regular babysitter, I guess would be the best way to put it for him. Um, and she issued a complete stay away order protection, ordered him out of the home, and gave me temporary sole custody of the kids. And this was on February 4th of 2022.
I think it's okay to mention this judge's name because we should give credit where credit is due.
It was Judge Deborah Hedgens. I can't really pronounce her name, but she was.
And some of her words that I really appreciated were that I believe you told me she said in the court that she recognized that he grabbed you at a young age.
Groomed me.
She recognized, right? I mean, it doesn't take a mathematician to do 16 and 40 and figure things out.
So here we are, April 2023, February 4th, 2022 is when he was ordered out of the home. We were given a complete stay away order protection, and it's been me and my kids. She also, because of the background that Judge Hedgington, because of the background and the stuff that me and my kids had been through over the last 2 to 3 years, she also said that wasn't going to issue him any visitation right off the bat. She thought that we needed a month or two to heal. And that was her exact words.
How is your healing going?
Well, she went until April where she did order him supervised visits through an agency.
But I mean, how's your healing going? How are your kids doing with this change where he was taken out of the house and now it's just you raising the kids. What happened with their grades? How are they doing?
Well, thank I hate to say it, but thankfully he has not followed through with any of his visitations. He has not seen his kids at all since February 4th of 2022. We have 4 kids here. Um, my oldest, I I tear up because he struggled so hard, so much, so much, like where he was barely passing. Due to the fact that his dad had sole custody, his dad was able to put him on medications, um, everything. So when I was able to take control of it, I gave him the opportunity to not only wean off the medicines, but we started a vitamin regimen. Um, we're doing just there's so much that has I can't even. Oh, he's able to play his instruments. He's doing drums now. He went from a 69, I believe. I would have to go back and reference, but I know it was barely passing to an 89.95 GPA this year.
You're a hero. You're
Um,
there for your kids through everything. You put them first, and now you're their mom, and now they're flourishing.
they
You saved
are,
them.
I mean, they sometimes talk about, sometimes we do talk about it because I try to keep an open communication with my kids. They do miss their dad. They don't know what they miss. We try to, I try to compensate, like, because we all know that he's able to visit the kids. He's just not making the right arrangements or doing the arrangements or making the arrangements to visit his kids.
And you just got a letter from a teacher?
Yeah, my daughter, she's in kindergarten this year. This was her first year in school, and her teacher was she has the same kindergarten teacher that my 9-year-old and my 7-year-old had. So she's like a recycled kindergarten teacher. I love it. However, she did send me a letter this year, or just last week, thanking me and showing her appreciation for how much I'm involved in my daughter's academic success. And it's very sweet. And, um,
They say sometimes that when people select attorneys, they pick attorneys that are kind of like they are. Do you want to describe the situation that is public information about your ex's attorney, Nicholas D'Angelo?
he's a serial
And
rapist. He's indicted on 13 counts of sexual assault. He was um, charged with sexual misconduct, even though it was a sexual assault in high school. How old is he? He's like 30. He's a young man, very young. But he's a sexual predator. He's a predator, and
and,
somehow Niagara
and you want
County
to
is
let
going to continue
and you
to
want to let the oh, I'm so sorry. You want to let the audience know his sensitive job that he had at one time
he,
also?
he was a Niagara County CPS attorney. He's still works for the public defender's office over here in Niagara County, and he takes private cases. Most of his private cases, if you did any research, are mostly defending sexual abusers and domestic violence abusers. It's
And sadly, we see cases where the kids are allegedly going to the alleged sex offender when he's involved in these custody actions. That, and despite the fact that he's been indicted, I think his arraignment was November of 2020, and he's been practicing ever since still, and hasn't had the trial for the criminal trial yet. Are you aware of any other attorneys with Niagara County CPS where kids seem to go to suspicious situations?
um, your ex. I mean, your ex. I don't know. I haven't. It's just it seems to happen frequently in Niagara County. It's all in who you know. When my boys were placed into foster care, my landlord was a Niagara County foster parent, and your ex was her family attorney. Um, she managed to escape sexual predatory behaviors and charges. She was having an affair with one of her foster daughters.
Who was
Somehow
age?
she was the daughter was like 16 or 17 at the time. They're actually still in a relationship. It's weird. Um, but your ex was the one that helped her get off all those charges and got her CPS case overturned. The whole everything. I to this day I'm still scratching my head like how this was possible. And
So
then it's
this,
like now they're in an open, blatant relationship together, her and this foster child.
right. So my ex was an attorney with Niagara County CPS. Nick D'Angelo was an attorney with Niagara County CPS. And this is a third attorney with Niagara County CPS where kids were going to predatorial homes, right?
It's common ground, you know. It's Niagara County is just I got so much to say, you know. As I was telling you prior, you know, and I've said to you a lot of times, like I get scared because I'm still technically in a custody trial for some strange reason. My ex still wants to take the case for custody to trial. Um, my attorney feels he's lost his mind if he thinks he's going to win a trial. No matter what he does or says, he hasn't seen his kids in over a year. They've done nothing but flourish without him. Um, but you know, I fear them because they don't like me. Um, and if somebody was to just randomly call CPS on me, I'm afraid they'd take my children, and it's not okay, you know. But
So,
that's
so you have this maybe long lasting fear of the system because things went opposite, you feel, than they really should have. And probably most of the viewers that are listening to this right now maybe have the same opinion. Things went opposite what they should have.
I've had CPS workers come into my home during the time that my ex had custody. Uh, my some of my children's counselors and caseworkers felt the need that CPS needed to be called on him for circumstances that were happening in the home. And I've had CPS workers here in Niagara County come into my home, interview my children, even speak with me, and make mention that they're glad that I was here providing my children with safety and that they weren't sure how they would have to take care of this report if I wasn't here to providing care for these children.
But you were the
But
one that was indicating the kids were taken from you, but they're glad you're there because he's more abusive.
but they feel I shouldn't have sole custody, but I should be taking care of my kids. I should not have any custody of my kids, but I'm their safety.
That, my friends, is like not knowing whether to scratch your watch or wind your bottom. Um, you've been involved in the system for a very long time. And I
Um,
consider you a success story because in the end, you have your kids and they're improving and thriving emotionally, physically, and you obviously, this wasn't just by chance, it's because you learned a lot of things along the way. Um, so, people who are listening and who might have problems with the system, especially in New York State, because this is the New York edition, what advice do you have for people to find success in their case?
I've said it to a lot of people. Um, if you are married, don't go to family court, file for divorce instead. Try to stay away from family court. I would love to sit there and say do everything CPS says. Stop, you know, even if it feels unfair, do it because we shall win in the appeals. I've done tons of court mandates and court venues. Drug testing, hair follicle testing, you name it. I've done it all, and I still couldn't win CPS. I do feel that if we didn't get to where we're at today, with all the burden of proof, I would have probably won having to go to appeals court. I would have won custody of my kids in an appeals court. I don't think I would ever win in family court or against CPS. Um,
And when you say you don't feel that you would win against CPS, you passed every single drug test, correct?
yeah, I've never. I even gave my hair follicle test one time because I just didn't understand it. Like I'm there. They at one point they said that I was not cooperating with drug and alcohol treatment, and I explained to them that I didn't have a drug problem. I went, I did the drug testing that was required. It was at Horizon Health Services, I can name them, right? And there was they do an assessment to decide if you have a drug problem. And part of that assessment are spontaneous urine tests and then a blood test. Well, I've never done drugs. I mean, I smoked marijuana way, way, way back in the day, like before I had kids. And then I tried it again back in like 2013 or something. It's just, I've never had a drug problem, period. So I did the assessment, and they asked what kind of drugs you use. I said, well, I tried marijuana when I was a kid. And then I did all the spontaneous drug testing, nothing. And they were saying I wasn't cooperative because I wasn't doing drug and alcohol treatment. And I told them that I couldn't get them to give me drug and alcohol. Like I couldn't get them to give me drug and alcohol treatment because I couldn't fail a drug test. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so I went and did a hair follicle test, and I said, "See, like, I don't use drugs." On numerous occasions, because of my body stature and my size, I've been told that I probably use cocaine, and that gets out of your system in so long. And that's why I went and gave them a hair follicle test because you can't trick them. But it wasn't enough, I guess. I don't know.
And you've never been arrested, right?
No, the only time I ever got arrested was in 2017. It was dropped, case was dismissed. In 2017, my kids were in foster care. I was pregnant with my daughter, and his van was registered and insured and titled in my name, and he wasn't paying the insurance, and they were threatening to repossess the van, and I just didn't care anymore. I was so over like fighting with him to do stuff because he put everything in my name. He ruined my credit, everything. So I went over to where I found out he was staying, and I removed the plates from the van. I still don't even know how he managed to do this. After three court appearances, the DA finally said, "Wait a minute, it was her van. She could remove the plates." Um, I went over there and I removed the plates and turned them into DMV. And he had me arrested for vandalism while I was 9 months pregnant on bed rest with our daughter.
Oh my
And Niagara
God.
Falls Police Department drove all the way out to Lockport, handcuffed me and arrested me and had me in a holding cell. I had never been arrested, so they obviously had to OR me and release me the next morning. I had a follow up court date, which I couldn't make because I was in the hospital having my daughter. And then when I went to the next court date, which was the third court date, would have been the third court date, the DA looked over all the evidence and they were like, well, it was her van. So they had to dismiss it because it was my van. It was, the loan on the van was in both of our names, me being the co-signer, but the insurance and the registration was all in my name. So it was more my van than his van. And I had the plates removed, and it was sitting on his girlfriend's property. So it's not like I had it towed or anything. So that was the only time I've ever been arrested. I don't have any criminal charges ever, anything like that. So
Well, I'm so proud of you and everything you've done. And while my ex caused you to lose your kids,
Sorry,
I'm
my
so thrilled
daughter
to be
peeked in on me.
I'm so thrilled to be a part of you getting your kids. And I wish that this never happened to you. Um, but I'm so glad to be a part of your recovery and your happiness and your future.
And I'm flourishing. I went to college and I'm
Yeah,
doing amazing. I don't know how. I
yeah.
spent many years.
What's your average these days?
Last semester I got a 4.0, got the dean's list. This semester, or this session, this semester is not close to over. The semester is not over till June, but right now my lowest grade is 95. So I'm going to school for accounting and finance. I graduate in October, and I will be going on for business administration.
Awesome.
I'll be transferring credits, and I will finally graduate with an associate or a diploma in accounting and an associate's in business administration in June of next year.
So it's a really, really rough story. What you've been through is a lot. But I'm so thrilled to have such a good ending to
Hope
everything
it
you've been
stays.
through.
I pray every night that it stays this way. You know, the kids are just, you know, they're doing amazing, and I've said it before, and I'll say it to everybody: just be your kid's safe space. You know, no matter how bad it gets, my kids have always came to me and felt safest with me. So if their dad does ever get visitations, I know that my kids feel safe enough to, you know, let me know if anything bad happens. Um, and they know I'll fight.
Thank you, Tiffany. Thanks for sharing your story. Um, and your story is a gift for a lot of people to see what's really going on. Um, Child Protective Services does not appear, at least in your situation, uh, to have been there for the benefit of the children.
They usually
You
aren't.
were, you were a child when you were taken advantage of.
And they didn't
And
protect me as a child, you know. And I just don't think they're there for the right reasons. Um, there's a lot of cases here in New York that family involved workers. There's a lot of cases, you know, Ian Brooks.
yeah,
There's a lot. There's a lot that where CPS has failed our children. So, I mean, if you ask me what advice do I give people, don't expect CPS to save anybody's kids. You know, if you fear that a child's being abused, you as a person do what you have to do. Don't call CPS.
work it
So,
out in the family too if you can too.
yeah, CPS isn't there to protect the kids. They're not going to. I mean, there's got to be they. It's not what you think it is. You know. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm not saying they're all bad. I can't say that. Sometimes I look at what my story from the very beginning, and I think Erie County, in a sense, saved my older three kids from a life of, but it could have been worse for them too, you know? They just really lucked out and they got a good foster parent.
yeah. They were lucky to get a good foster parent. Yeah. Yeah. All right, honey. Well, thank you so much. Blessings to you and your children.
Thanks for having me.
All right, though. You have a great day.
Bye.
All right, bye.